Promises are meant to be kept, and that is why we are here. UPSC Essentials live videos of the Indian Express. And today we are going to discuss the key issues and terms. Dear aspirants, as you know that UPSC framed questions around various terms and issues, be it your prelims examination or mains. And sometimes also in the interview, they ask you questions or opinion revolving around various issues which are around you. Therefore, we thought, let's do a live video for your preparation in terms of the key terms and issues. Today, we are going to take up the issue and the terms related to Annual Status of Education Report, or the ASER 2022. Now first let's know how we are going to go about it. We are going to talk about the factual part of the report. Moving on, I'll discuss analytical or certain questions which require analysis. उसके बाद हम निपुण भारत प्रोग्राम के बारे में थोड़ा जानेंगे. We will know about the NIPUN Bharat program. I'll also take up MCQ which you must have come across in our UPSC Essentials articles. And finally, we will discuss a point to ponder, which will be a question for you. You can do it at your home. So अगर आप तैयार हैं, with your permission, we can start with the live video now. So let's start and know what are certain basics of this ASER report, which is Annual Status of Education Report 2022. So let's begin with the factual part. तो सबसे पहले हम कुछ important facts जानेंगे जो कि इस report के से बहुत related है. And remember, this report comes out in 2023 January, but it is related to 2022. तो जहां भी आपको 2022 दिखे, don't be confused because it is very relevant to current affairs. Now, what is the first point? As you see on the screen, that this report sheds light on the learning outcomes in school, which was released in January 2023. So as I mentioned, कि ये report basically 2023 में release हुई है, but it talks about the data, the analysis, the important points which are related to 2022. The next important point, as you can see on the screen, is it is an annual household and citizen-led household survey. We'll come to this when we'll go to analysis part, but you should keep in mind that it is a household and citizen-led household. मतलब ये कोई government body नहीं करा रही है. This is done by the citizens and an organization which is represented by citizens, and they go on the fields and collect the data from the citizens. Then it's a key national survey and it captures the two important things which you have to keep in mind. One is the foundation literacy and the second is the numeracy of the country. Now, there are a lot of questions which will be designed in the analytical part of the, your examination based on these two. Finally, the most important point is who releases or who works for this particular report is your Pratham Foundation. And remember, it conducted the last the scale of survey in 2018. Now, when I talk about this report and I said that the last survey on a large scale was done in 2018, it doesn't mean that in the previous year, in the COVID times, they were not doing it. But it was basically a phone-based survey. So it was not on the fields, but because of the COVID restrictions, they cannot go to the field. So it was a phone-based survey. So what they did was they explored the digital inequality and enrollment levels in schools through their phone-based survey. In 2022, the Pratham resumed to field survey and returned to villages across India. So it basically is a report which covers the rural India. So it covered the villages across the India and it resumed in 2022, and therefore this report becomes very important for 2023, which is the current year. The next point here, as you see, that it covers 7 lakh children in 19,060 villages across 616 district in the country. ये केवल इसलिए आपको फैक्ट बताया जा रहा है ताकि आप इसकी जो स्केल है इसको आप समझ सकें, that it has grown to that large scale soon after the COVID restrictions have been removed. Now let's talk about what are the key takeaways from ASER 2022. Now the first important key takeaway is that there is this increase in the enrollment of children in government schools. Now ये point इसलिए important है because a lot of times we think कि private schools में ज़्यादा enrollment है, private school में ज़्यादा लोग जा रहे हैं, जाना चाह रहे हैं. But here we see that the increase in the enrollment is particularly in government school. और इसमें एक डाटा जो यहाँ पे दिया गया है, you can refer to it. Probably you'll not remember during the time of examination, but it clicks sometime. So 98.4% of children in the age group of 6 to 14 are in school now. And this is up from 97.2% in 2018. So this is a kind of a great achievement, even when the COVID times were going on and the enrollment is increasing. So there is a win situation here. Now, here also we'll talk about a little bit about the analytical part later in the presentation. The second point here is that there is a decrease in the proportion of girls not enrolled in schools. So you see, these are positive points. That what it means is that enrollment of girls have increased. And particularly in the age group from 11 to 14, we see that it is 4.1% it was in 2018. और अब जो है it is 2% in 2022. So the decrease, if you see, is more than 2%. So that's a good news. But that's not all. There are certain negative things also which this report highlights. So कुछ negative points हैं. जो सबसे पहला negative point है वो है drop in learning levels. यानी जो learning level है उसमें drop हुआ है. Now which is very obvious and we have heard about it throughout our COVID times that बच्चों की जो learning skills हैं या जो learning capacity है वो कम हुई है during the COVID times or because of the COVID times. So basically the foundational skills in reading and arithmetic, or in fact the report says that it's kind of a worst fears about the pandemic. ये जो बच्चों को सबसे ज़्यादा नुकसान हुआ है वो basically ये जो foundational skills of learning है और arithmetic है उसमें worst है. The next point here is, whether you consider it as a good point or a bad point, is the increase in private tuitions. Okay, so between 2018 to 2022, the private tuitions have increased. 26.4 पहले था and now it is 30.5%. Now you can always analyze that why the private tuitions have increased. But mostly because when in the COVID times children were not sent to school, but of course they have to study, parents have to take a decision कि इनको किसी तरह पढ़ाया जाए, and in order to teach them there were increase in private tuitions. But after this there is something which you don't mostly find in various articles, but in the Indian Express article there was this point highlighted which I have clearly mentioned here, that this particular report also provides insights on material improvement in rural India. So it's just not limited to education. If you go between the lines, अगर आप report की तह तक जाएं, तो you can get to know about other things also. This report tells us, or the analysis tells us, that there are more families which are moving into pakka houses, having toilets, electricity, and owing to two-wheelers. तो ASER रिपोर्ट जो है कभी कभी ये सारी इंफॉर्मेशन भी आपको देती है. तो कभी कभी ये थोड़ी हैरानी होती है दैट ड्यूरिंग द कोविड टाइम्स व्हेन पीपल वर गोइंग इनटू फाइनेंशियल क्रंच, जब इकोनॉमिक प्रॉब्लम्स चल रही थी, बट स्टिल देयर हैव बीन सर्टेन इंप्रूवमेंट्स. So this is another positive sign which you get to know from the ASER report. Now, when I move to the analytical part of this particular report, I would like to take up a very important interview which was taken and done by the explained section of the Indian Express, where Rukmani Banerjee, who is the CEO of Pratham, she answered some very relevant questions. Now, the reason behind taking this interview is कि कभी कभी आप मेंस का जब पेपर उठाते हैं तो आप उसमें देखते हैं there are certain questions which are not very direct questions, but they have certain reference to a particular report or to a particular policy. ये questions यहाँ से बनाए जा सकते हैं. The second important thing about such kind of informative interviews are your interviews, that is personality test. तो पर्सनालिटी टेस्ट में कभी कभी जस्ट टू चेक यू योर ओपिनियन एंड योर the depth of knowledge, they can frame good questions from such kind of articles. So therefore we thought that कि रुक्मिणी बैनर्जी का जो इंटरव्यू है, शी इज द सीईओ ऑफ प्रथम एनजीओ, उसके बारे में हम सब बात करें. We have taken some very relevant questions from Rukmini's interview, and they are these 3-4 questions, and we will briefly discuss what she says about it, and so that you can form your own opinion in your answers. For example, we'll take up this question: have improvements in facilities like midday meals, toilets, etc. contributed to the increased enrollment? तो हमने अभी देखा कि enrollment level बढ़ा है. तो explain section में the question which was asked was whether these facilities like midday meal, toilets, or these things have contributed in the enrollment or not. Then the second question is about the private, the private tuition, which I'm sure has drawn a lot of attention and attraction over this report. So what could be the reason behind this increase in tuition, the private tuitions? The third question here, which we can talk about looking at Rukmini's interview, is what is the trend on foundational skills emphasized in National Education Policy of 2020? And here definitely she mentions about NIPUN, which we will talk about in brief. And finally, you can also analyze by yourself, and there is a question in this particular explained also, that what is the road ahead to improve these foundational skills. So this is a very important question for your personality test or your interview when the panel sits, and if they ask you what you want to do for the education sector, these are some questions which should hit your mind, which you should seek answers for. And this particular explained interview, which is by the title An Expert Explained, tells you a lot of, gives you a lot of fodder for your answer. When we talk about this question, that have improvements in facilities like midday meals, toilets, etc. contributed to the increased enrollment? क्या जो increased enrollment हुआ है वो midday meal, toilets और इन सब की वजह से हुआ है? इस पे रुक्मिणी का जो जवाब है, just shorten it for you. She says that over time there has been improvement in infrastructure variables, which is very common thing to say, but it's important. She mentions that rural private schools couldn't do much because their own economy was very fragile. Okay, so she talks about the private school in the rural area. So private schools in the cities, okay, they might be having a lot of money, but in the rural areas where there's financial crunch, they could not do great work during the times of COVID. Okay, but when it comes to the state or to the government schools, now these government schools which are attached to the state governments of particular states, they do pretty well, good job in terms that they provided textbooks, they distributed midday meals. So all these things provided, helped in increasing the enrollment in the government schools of the rural area. Then the next point, which talks about the teachers. Now, teachers play a very vital role in all our lives, but especially during the time of COVID or in the year 2022, the teachers were able to reach out in some form or fashion. So, you must have seen those videos where teachers are trying to connect with students, or say on mobile phone or internet. If there is no internet, they try to reach out to the homes or the houses of those students, so that the continuity of education between the receiver and the one who is giving is maintained. तो ये जो role है teacher का, ये बहुत important है. So you have to understand, and as it is highlighted everywhere in the report, the role of the parents and the role of the teachers played great role in increasing the enrollment level in the schools. The next point about private tuition. Now, the answer which the CEO gave is quite generic. But since it's coming from a person of authority, somebody who has conducted the survey, this generic answer becomes very relevant. And therefore, if somebody asks you कि private tuition बढ़े, so what do you mean by that? Here, I would exactly quote what she says so that you get some kind of, your answer gets some kind of validation. So she says, and I quote, "You could probably negotiate better with the provider, that is, that this month I don't have money, but next month I will." This is something which you will be not able to do in the school. Okay, but with a private tutor, you can say that, you can give money this month, you can't give the next month because of financial crunch. तो यही बात वो कह रही है कि इस वजह से प्राइवेट ट्यूशंस में बहुत बढ़ोतरी हुई, because you can manage. Okay. And so parents felt that schools are closed. We are not sure when they will open, but we need to get some extra help. In a way, I feel, that is Rukmini feels, you can think about this as a local organizing system. So, these points are also very important for your ethics paper, where how local organizing is done. When parents are not able to send students to school because schools are shut, लेकिन पढ़ाना तो है ही. Okay, otherwise, what kind of environment children will create in the homes. Also, it's important for them to keep learning. उसके लिए क्या करना है? Then they go to the private tutors where, they can manipulate or manage the fees part also. So this is a very generic answer, but it is true. Next, if you go to the next question, which talks about what is the trend on foundational skills emphasized in National Education Policy of 2020. Now see, we are not discussing here NEP 2020. But what is important through this interview is when the CEO talks about NIPUN and the Foundational Literary and Numeracy Mission. And it is mentioned that almost 80% of schools reported that we have received guidelines and teachers have been trained. So this NIPUN Bharat program hai, this has been very useful according to the ASER report, according to the people who have worked in this report for this, the survey. They have given a few credit to this government program. We'll see for our examination point of view later that what is this mission in brief. So when it comes to the question that what is the road ahead about the foundational skills. Now why this question is important? Because it is basically the foundational skills जो कि मैटर करती है, जो रिपोर्ट कह रही है कि उसमें थोड़ी सी गड़बड़ी कहीं रह गई है, बिकॉज एनरोलमेंट हैज इंक्रीज्ड, मोर गर्ल्स आर गोइंग टू स्कूल्स, बट फाउंडेशनल स्किल्स में थोड़ी प्रॉब्लम है, एंड मेजरली बिकॉज ऑफ द कोविड एरा. But there is a point which is mentioned by the CEO in the interview is about the Anganwadi system. And what it means is that if the Anganwadi system is made more efficient and more participatory, then this foundational skill thing can be managed. And in fact, she in her interview connects the Anganwadi system with the school system. She said कि Anganwadi और school system को एक integrating platform चाहिए. And once that integrating platform comes, तो हम foundational skills की जो problem है बच्चों में, that we can overcome. So she says that I think an integration between Anganwadi system and the school system is urgently needed, because the work starts there. You know that in the Anganwadi system, basically, जो छोटे बच्चे होते हैं उनको भेजा जाता है, and that's in a way after home, Anganwadi becomes the second home for them for learning, for improvement of skills, or in fact gaining more skills, so that next stage when they go to schools, they are well trained. तो वहाँ के लिए it is that the integration between Anganwadi and school system is urgently needed. It is a known fact that Anganwadi is everywhere, and in the Anganwadi the enrollment has gone up. So the जो gap है, जो foundational skills के लिए जो gap है, वो अगर हम integrate कर दें इसको. So see, in a way she asks questions. She says, so how do we make sure that happens? The Anganwadi system is generally less funded. Now that is a problem. कि Anganwadi system there is less fund, so उस तरह से वो productive in a way नहीं हो पाता है. So if we come over this problem, at least in the part of education, तो हम foundational skill का जो gap है उसको हम manage कर सकते हैं to fill. And what about the kids who have past class 4 and 5 now, they too have undergone learning losses. So there are two questions which she poses. One, she poses about the Anganwadi system, जो कि less funded है, and about those children जो कि class 4 or 5 में चले जा चुके हैं, but the gap, the COVID gap of learning which they have gone through, वो अभी तक नहीं भर पाया है, and that is an important point to seek your answer for. So in the report, there are 3 states which are talked about, which is Karnataka, Chhattisgarh, and West Bengal. Now, why these 3 states are important? Because these are the states where Pratham undertook learning outcome surveys in the pandemic year of 2021. So, ये 3 states important है, और इसलिए भी important है because there is a comparison also done. So, we get to know that how these states performed in the terms of education even during the time of the pandemic year of 2021. And what does it suggest? In brief, it suggests that there has been an attempt to recover lost ground once schools reopened after the pandemic. So how it is done, I have taken some data examples, just so that you can understand how this has happened. Like for example, in Chhattisgarh, the proportion of class 3 children who can read a class 2 textbook has dropped to an alarming 12.3% in 2021, down from 29.8% in 2018, only to bounce back to 24.2% in 2022. Now see, अगर कोशिश की जाए तो कोई भी चीज नामुमकिन नहीं है. During the COVID times, there was a decline. But with the efforts of the state governments and the people or the stakeholders involved in imparting education, in 2022, there's a bounce back to 24.2%. In West Bengal, the number rose from 29.5% in 2021 to 33% in 2022. So you see, they have tried, they have made an attempt, and there is a fruitful result. Also, when we talk about in case of maths, because you are saying that, mathematics, arithmetic may be thoda locha hai. Now, in that case of maths, the share of children in class 3 in Chhattisgarh with the ability to solve basic math problems fell from 19.3% in 2018 to 9% in 2021. तो वो gap देखिए कितना ज़्यादा है in the COVID years. Okay, so 2018 is pre-COVID. But 2021, during the time of COVID, 9% तक गिर गया था. But in 2022, see the rise. It is 19.6%, which is a huge achievement. Look at in Karnataka, for example, the number rose from 17.3% in 2021 to 22.2% in 2022. And in West Bengal, from 29.4% in 2021 to 34.2% in 2022. Now, all these facts you don't need to remember. But when you watch a video, you see something in front of you, it sticks to your mind. कि improvement हुआ है, कुछ states में improvement हुआ है, which you can, cite as examples. Even if you're not able to remember the numbers, you can cite the examples roughly in your answers. So this is a good achievement by these states. In fact, Karthik Muralidharan from the California University has talked about Tamil Nadu's recovery. I thought we should just talk about it a little bit. And he underlines that the significance of empowering teachers and reaching out to students in their homes. Now, that is the point जो मैं आपको पहले बता रहा था कि parents का भी एक concern है, but साथ में जब कुछ अच्छा काम हो रहा है in the field of education, it can't be done without the role of teachers. And in this particular, the report by Karthik Muralidharan, when he talks about the Tamil Nadu's recovery, which is different from these 3 states, he talks about that how teachers have played an important role in reaching out to the students and therefore has helped in the enrollment and the education levels. And the last line, which I thought should be mentioned here so that you can write your answer, you begin your answer with, or you end your answer with a good positive note, is when it says that a system that synergies the role of the home and classroom is a way to go. So it brings home and classroom at the same platform if you want to have education on rise. Now, as mentioned between the slides a lot of times and between the lines of various articles, also this report about the NIPUN Bharat program. Now, I want you to go and research a little bit more about this program because education is a big news these days. You have NEP, you have this particular report. So you should talk about certain programs by the government. Now, Ministry of Education has launched the National Initiative for Proficiency in Reading and Understanding and Numeracy, which is known as the NIPUN Bharat program. It ensures, so what does it do? It ensures that every child in the country necessarily attains foundational literacy and numeracy. So जहाँ भी FLN लिखा हुआ है, FLN stands for Foundational Literacy and Numeracy by the end of grade 3 by 2026-27. So ये जो 26-27 है, ये बहुत important period है in the terms of education for our country, because this particular program of Indian government or India talks about that एक फाउंडेशनल लिटरेसी और न्यूमरेसी जो कि FLN है उसको अटेन करना है 2026-27 तक. And remember that it has been launched under the aegis of the centrally sponsored scheme which is known as Samagra Shiksha. So let me just take you to a MCQ. Now this is a question. You have to find an answer and you have to write that answer in the comment box below. So I'll read the question, I'll read it twice and you have to grasp it, and it is based on whatever we have read or seen in the video today. So the question is, which of the following statements are incorrect with reference to the Annual Status of Education Report 2022? So there are 4 statements and then you have 4 options. The first statement is, school enrollment has touched a record high. The second statement is, proportion of girls enrolled in school has dropped across age groups. The third statement is, proportion of children in government school has decreased. The fourth is, there is a drop in numeracy skill but not as large as drop in the reading skills. So these are the 4 statements. Now 4 options. Option A, only one, that is only one is incorrect. So please remember the question says incorrect. It says incorrect, it doesn't say correct. So which of the statements are incorrect? A, only one, B, 2 and 3, C, 4, and D, 1 and 4 only. So I hope you have taken a note of this question. It is based on this particular report which we have studied right now, and this is mostly factual. So you see the questions which are framed in UPSC examination might not talk about numbers, but with the numbers, if you have read the numbers in the report or in anywhere in your answers or in your books, you get an idea that whether there's an increase or a decrease. Okay, so that element in particular text you have to keep in mind, and this question is based upon that kind of analysis. So finally, this is a point to ponder. Now, point to ponder, as you must have read, are various articles which me and my team produces or we publish for the UPSC audience. We give you a point to ponder after every question or article. So here also, continuing that trend in the videos, the ASER and other such surveys define both learning and assessment in absolute and definite ways, which do not do justice to the dynamic nature of learning process discussed. Okay, so this is the question. Now, if you go closely to the question and you observe it, this is not a very positive statement about the report or the survey. It in fact is a critique. It criticizes in a way. Okay, so the coin has 2 sides. There is a positive side, there is a negative side. There's something good which the surveys do, but there are some things which the survey might ignore. This question is regarding that. And as an aspiring civil servant or the future civil servant, you should be aware of both pluses and minuses. Okay, so this particular point to ponder is taken from an opinion piece of the Indian Express, which says the problem with ASER survey reducing learning to absolute measurables. So this particular line, an important line, is taken from this opinion, and you should be in a habit. I'm sure you read opinions and editorials of the Indian Express. Pick up those important catchy lines which can be formed as a question or can be an important fodder to your answer. So my request to you is that do attempt this question, read the opinion piece, go through it, pick out the important points which are mentioned, and it's not necessary that you frame your answer only on the basis of this particular opinion or article. Try to fix the puzzle with other articles, this video particularly, or the other explained or other articles in the Indian Express, and then it will form a very good informative answer or fodder for your notes, for your UPSC notes, for sure. So this was our today's topic, which was based on the ASER report, and this is particularly relevant for the education, questions on education. It can come under social issues and GS paper 1, GS paper 2, specifically since it's the season of personality test or interview in the UPSC. Make sure that you know good points, good important points from this particular report, this particular survey, and frame an opinion which pleases your interview board. And when you become an IAS officer or a civil servant, make sure that you do well, you do something positive for the education sector of this country. This sector needs good administrators like you. Thank you so much, and we'll come back with another video of the UPSC Essentials live video. Please join us, subscribe and like the UPSC Essentials of the Indian Express.